Namaste and welcome. In our series Yoga for Unity and Well-being, today's lecture is going to be on meditation, dhyana, as in the Heartfulness system. With us is Shri Prashanth Vasu. Prashanth Vasuji, for the last 24 years, has been meditating, exploring, and training people in this system of dhyana. His mother, Shri Viji Vasuji, is a direct disciple of Shri Desi Kachar, the son and spiritual successor of Krishnamacharyaji. He loves chanting the Yoga Sutras and is widely read as well as experienced in the field of yoga. He serves currently as the president of strategy at the Ramco Group based in Chennai, India. Prashanth Vasuji is an example of how meditation can be an agent for excellence and leadership. As a renowned speaker, we are glad that he has accepted to give us some time to introduce this concept of dhyana or meditation. Why should we meditate? How best to meditate to get those results that meditation promises? What is the science behind meditation? We do hope you get inspired by this lecture to meditate regularly, for it is only then that the results can show and we can dive deeper each day in our practice.
Respectful and heartfelt pranams to the guides, Swami Ramdevji of Patanjali Yogapeeth, Dr. Nagendra of S. Vyasa, and our very dear Daji Shri Kamlesh Patel of the Heartfulness Institute, and volunteers of these three organizations, and several other organizations for coming together to conceptualize and execute such a unique program, Yoga for Unity, in a spirit of unity. Greetings to all participants of this program. It is really praiseworthy that you're able to make the time amidst your busy schedules for this, and hopefully it's a fruitful investment of your time. I've been requested to address the topic of dhyan or meditation. It is a great privilege to be able to share some perspectives on this. I have been very fortunate to be a practitioner of heartfulness for the last 25 years. I intend to draw from three sources that have been enabled by the guides of heartfulness. First is the insight and wisdom that they have poured on this topic. Second, and more important, the personal experiences that they have afforded practitioners through this simple and effective method. And three, the permission that they have granted to many of us to serve as trainers in this way, and therefore derive some sort of vicarious exposure to the spectrum of experiences that many practitioners have had as we have had the opportunity to introduce them to meditation. All this said, I do want to convey at the outset that by no stretch of imagination am I an expert in this field. In fact, as the days go by, I'm more and more convinced that this is an infinite path and every step seems like the first step. I'm assuming that viewers of this session have the following understanding of dhyana or yoga from the earlier sessions, although this is not a prerequisite. First, that yoga is a state of union, and in its pristine sense, a state of union between the individual soul and the infinite source. Second, that yoga as a practice or a process is one of settling the mind by purifying the heart, and that provides access to the infinite source. And third, that the Greek sage Patanjali defined an integrated set of 8 practices covering the outer and the inner, the body, the mind, and the spirit, called Ashtanga Yoga, to effect the purification of the heart and the settling of the mind. Dhyan or meditation is the seventh limb of Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga scheme. With this background, this session is in three parts. The first part is motivating meditation. Why should I meditate? The second part is meditative practices. How do I meditate? And the third part is beyond meditation. What after? Actually, these questions are best addressed with one's own personal experience. And I trust you all are taking advantage of the sessions being conducted during the morning as part of this Yoga for Unity program. But that said, in this session, we'll provide some sort of an appreciation or understanding of these practices. As we start, we would love to know a little bit about you, and we'll conduct a brief poll that you can take. Finally, before we dive into the subject, I invite you to please join me in centering ourselves for a minute and becoming present to the session. Specifically, may I request you all to rest your attention in the heart in a gentle way and take 10 deep breaths through the left nostril that is supposed to activate our parasympathetic nervous system, the nervous system for rest and repose. Thank you. So let's start with the first part, motivating meditation. Why should I meditate? Before addressing that, let us ask ourselves, what is meditation? I have been quite awestruck by a beautiful representation of meditation by Dagi. Effortless focus on one thing for a period of time. I repeat, effortless focus on one thing for a period of time. It totally demystifies meditation as nothing abstract, but an activity that is quite accessible. What is even more interesting is the pictorial representation of it that is included in, in his book, The Heartfulness Way, which reminded me of my high school lessons in coordinate geometry. He had secretly perhaps introduced this in the book, for I had never heard this unique definition in the interactions with him prior to the release of this book. Once again, the picture, effortless focus on one thing for a period of time. On a lighter vein, I have shamelessly copied this definition while presenting in several colleges and corporates, and people are both pleased and amused with themselves for largely being in the domain of daydreaming. Anyway, with this simple definition of meditation, let us come back to the question pertaining to this section of the session, which is, why should I meditate? If I were to make a claim that there is a simple practice through which we can transform ourselves to become the best versions of ourselves, might we be interested? That is what meditation can do. Through meditation, personal mastery. Let us explore this from many angles, multiple angles. Let us start with the neuroscientific rationale. as there is some remarkable research in the recent decades on the brain, the effects of meditation, and so on. As I was exposed to this by some of my fellow trainers in Heartfulness and by Daji himself, the two simple messages, at least I walked away with, based on an initial understanding of this research, were that A, the average human being is in quite a mental mess, and B, meditation as a practice is one sure way of restoring some basic sanity and peace within us. Here are five interesting insights that I learned from around what neuroscientific research is saying about meditation, the brain, and so forth. Firstly, the average human being has many, many thoughts a day. Would you like to take a moment to guess how many thoughts an average human being might have per day? It is around 70,000 thoughts a day, which is a thought every 1.25 seconds or so. That's a lot, many thoughts. Second, a good proportion of these thoughts are not related to the activity that we are engaged on. Would you want to guess what proportion of our thoughts relate to the activity that we are presently engaged on? It is close to about 50%, meaning half the time the mind is wandering. What is the problem with that? A wandering mind, research suggests, is likely to be more moody and less prone to being happy. So, this is the second finding that I walked away with, neuroscience. The third finding, it becomes even more interesting. A reasonable proportion of our random thoughts are indeed negative. What proportion might you think of our random thoughts are actually negative? It is two-thirds. That is, more than a majority of our thoughts are actually negative thoughts. And if we run the math, it is about a thought every 2 seconds is a negative thought. Imagine what assaults us as average human beings. One negative thought every 2 seconds. The fourth one is a bit more frightening, which is what proportion of our thoughts are truly in our control? And the answer is about 5%, because 95% of our thoughts stem from the subconscious system, which is not in our direct control. So, this encouraging inspiration that we get from people when we have negative thoughts to say, please think positively, is very well meaning, but often not practicable because a majority of our thoughts, overwhelming majority, 95%, is ruled by the subconscious mind. So, if we put all this together, what does the picture look like? Doesn't it look like we might be in quite a mental mess? The average human being has many thoughts, a thought every 1.25 seconds or so. A majority of them are negative thoughts. We have roughly a thought every 2 seconds, which is negative, and these are not in our control. So, are we doomed to failure? Are we doomed to a life of unhappiness? Neuroscientific research has also thankfully proven the positive effects of meditation on the mind. It has shown that meditation improves focus. The wandering nature of the mind actually decreases with meditation. It has shown that meditation improves emotional regulation, meaning we are less negative and less stressed with meditation. And number three, that it also improves self awareness. So there is a redemptive power to meditation as one of the practices that helps us combat the current natural tendency of our mind to wander, and languish in negativity. In other words, in the current world context, through meditation, basic happiness is the message that neuroscientific research seems to be suggesting to us, as I understood it. So, this is one motivation for meditation. Let's come to the second, a bit more positive orientation to it, which is through meditation, peak performance. You all might have heard of the state of flow. That is basically a state in which one is completely engaged on the activity that they are involved in, totally focused, balanced, and relaxed. It is also a state that is associated with extraordinary accomplishments by people in the realm of sports, in the realm of scientific research, and so on. It is a state that people often describe they were in when they accomplished, let's say, a breakthrough world record in athletics or sport, when they actually had an aha moment that resulted in a major scientific discovery, when a research was conducted to understand how people feel at that moment, the word that emerged most commonly is a state of flow. Now, this state of flow is a state of relaxed concentration that neuroscientifically is very, very similar to the state of meditation. Now, the interesting thing is that for these people of extraordinary accomplishment, the state of flow just seems to happen. It happens automatically, or it happened at a certain point in time, resulting in that accomplishment. The question is, can we make it happen a bit more deliberately for us in our life context? And that is what it has been shown that meditation can enable. For meditation is nothing but effortless focus on one thing for a period of time. So, with a regular effective practice of meditation, we can actually get into a state of flow, or the likelihood that we get into a state of flow gets greatly enhanced. And thereby, it's more likely that we perform at our best potential. So, that's the second rationale for meditation, which is through meditation, peak performance. Let's go further. As human beings, we are social creatures and we value and enjoy relationships. Can meditation impact that? The answer is yes. Why? A good meditative practice helps us move from thinking to feeling. I repeat, a good meditative practice helps us move from thinking to feeling. With this capacity, first and foremost, our ability to connect with ourselves goes up quite substantially. In other words, we become more self aware. As I mentioned, this has been neuroscientifically proven. As our capacity for self awareness goes up, our own self empathy goes up. Research also suggests that when one is more self aware, one has greater empathy for others. One has greater empathy for others. Greater empathy, as we all know, results in greater connection with others. Our relationships truly become more enriching, more rewarding, more fulfilling. In fact, a good meditative practice helps us shift beyond empathy to compassion, where we yearn and attempt to relieve another of their pain or suffering. Research suggests that reward centers in our brain get more active when we support others and support others succeed or relieve others of their suffering than when we indulge in our own satisfaction and fulfillment alone. So, one can say that through meditation, better relationships, through meditation, compassion, connection, and relationships. That's the third rationale to attempt meditation. Let's go to the fourth. I'm sure there are many of us in this group who are very passionate about social reform, about social service, and may well be inclined to ask the question, can meditation change the world in any way, or is it just for my personal benefit? The resounding answer is yes. Our inner condition changes the atmosphere and the world around us. But let me start on a lighter vein with a joke that the second guide of Heartfulness actually offered when somebody asked him this question. Somebody asked him, his name is Shri Ramchandraji from Shahjahanpur, affectionately called Babuji. So somebody asked Babuji apparently once, how does the world benefit when I meditate? And he is supposed to have very interestingly responded, during that time at least, you're staying away from mischief, and to that little extent, the world is saved of your problems. But it has great significance. He used to say, apparently, even in my jokes, there is a great message involved. But yogic science actually confirms this, as Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutras, that the benefit of nonviolence is that for one who practices nonviolence, there is harmony in the environment around automatically. Harmony prevails automatically in the environment around. That is why in the ashrams of great sages in the past, we have seen animals coexist very harmoniously together, and an atmosphere of harmony prevails. This is also illustrated in a beautiful story about Lord Buddha that I have been particularly drawn to. There was this thief called Anguli Mala, a very fearsome thief. Anguli means finger in Hindi, and Mala is a garland. So this thief is supposed to have had a garland of all the fingers of people he cut out of while during his acts of robbery. He was a fearsome thief. He heard about Lord Buddha and wanted to come and confront Lord Buddha and see what this gentleman was really about. When he came in front with all his fearsome appearance in front of Lord Buddha, he was so astounded by the composure, tranquility, and peace in Lord Buddha that all his violence automatically vanished. In fact, he is said to have become one of Buddha's devoted disciples. In other words, the story suggests to us that in the presence of one who is peaceful, the atmosphere becomes peaceful. We have all experienced it, I'm sure, in our own personal lives, that when we go in front of someone who's very composed, our own agitation gets settled in their presence. And that is the great wisdom of yoga, that if we really want world peace, it needs to start with individual peace. And therefore, Daji beautifully says, often says, that our inner condition creates an echo in the universe. And research too is confirming more and more that there is a field around us, that there is a field around us that reflects our inner environment, our thoughts, our attitudes, our behavior is reflected outside. So that's the fourth motivation to meditate, which is through meditation, a better world. Finally, let us look at it from a yogic science standpoint. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra suggests that a settled mind reveals the object, the nature of the object that it focuses on. Taking it one step further, if we allow this mind to settle on our inner self, our true nature would be revealed to us, which is supposed to be one of infinite bliss, way, way beyond the highest joy or pleasure that we can accomplish through worldly activities. This is what yogic science suggests. Now, Daji clarifies that this revelation comes to us as a vision, as a feeling, not as a thought, but as a feeling. And we all, at our core, yearn for this infinity. We yearn for this infinite bliss. It is a part and parcel of our being human. We can never, this call to infinity can never be dulled with time, is what yogic science suggests. And all our pursuits, although we look for this infinity in worldly activities, the deepest call to infinity is when the individual soul reunites with the infinite source. And that happens when we settle the mind on ourself in the heart. In other words, through meditation, through the simple act of meditation, infinity or self realization. So, if we look at it from many, many angles, whether it be from the angle of basic happiness, whether it be from the angle of peak performance, whether it be from the angle of improving our relationships in the world, whether it be to create a better world around us, or whether it be for the ultimate quest or purpose of human life, which is to reunite with infinity. Meditation is that simple practice that can, in one shot, enable our very goals in life. As practitioners and trainers of heartfulness, we've had the great privilege to welcome people into this way who come with many, many different aspirations, many different goals from varied backgrounds. Some come just seeking peace, some come seeking stress relief, some come to understand the true nature of the self. All these reasons are valid. And hopefully, through the simple act of meditation, we get awakened to the highest goal that is possible for us as human beings, which is reuniting with infinity, which is self realization, which is otherwise also called God realization. Finally, in heartfulness, we are taught and encouraged to adopt a scientific approach to meditation. By confirming all these claims of formal research in our own personal experience, as opposed to just taking them as blind belief. After 25 years of practice, I can surely relate to each of these motivations. At the first one, I generally find myself certainly a happier person compared to many years back, certainly so. I used to have a lot of fear that used to assault me without my even knowing why I was afraid. That has substantially reduced now. I remember as a sub junior, I used to play competitive tennis, and every time I tossed the ball up, I used to doubt, oh my God, and fear, oh my God, double fault, double fault. I wish I had this practice then. Second, this practice has also helped me gain a lot of focus and energy. In my professional life, I spent the greater part of my time in the field of management consulting, which many would confirm is quite a demanding profession. entailing quite a lot of travel and intense work. During those days, the heartfulness practices have given me a lot of energy and focus. In fact, the busier life became and the more demanding life became, professional life became, this practice was of greater service to me. Paradoxically, the busier I became, the more I needed this practice and the more I ensured that I was regular in my practice. Why? Because 20 to 30 minutes of meditation ended up releasing 2 hours of unproductive time, either worrying or taking wrong decisions. In other words, I found that meditation does not take time, but it actually returns time. This was something that I was very fortunate to experience personally. At the third level, I certainly, if I were to reflect on my relationships, I'm very blessed to have fulfilling associations in my family life, personal life, work life, and so forth. And by and large, this practice has generally helped me accept people as they are, celebrate their strengths, and in general, live a life of joy and togetherness with people around. At the fourth level, I must say that I'm very, very privileged and blessed to participate with very many other volunteers in this heartfulness way in extending this practice to so many aspirants worldwide, to my colleges that I studied in, etc. It's a matter of great joy and privilege and a great blessing to be able to do that. And finally, this practice has certainly given me a direction in life, a certain purpose. It has afforded me experiences that have been very profound to explain or put in writing, as many of us practitioners would attest. And it has helped confirmed for me that there must be something deeper to life than just coming, earning one's bread, fulfilling family responsibilities, and suddenly vanishing one day. This practice has confirmed in my heart that there must be a deeper and greater purpose to life, and it has certainly given me a very pleasant direction to life. And thereby, it has put in context some of the trials that we all inevitably go through in life as something in the context of a journey towards infinity. So that's what I'd like to say. I am eagerly look forward to continuing on this path towards infinity. So that brings us to the conclusion of the first part of this session, which is why should we meditate? Once again, let's take a minute's pause, center ourselves in our heart, take a few deep breaths before we proceed. Now we'll go to the second part of the session, which is meditative practices. How do we meditate? There are many methods of the first point I want to make is that there are many methods of meditation. I would like to start on a cautionary note that we meditate only with proper guidance and on a tried and tested method. Meditating on one's own without proper guidance can indeed be counterproductive. Let us explore two basic ideas as we look at the method to meditate. The first idea is that the object of meditation matters. Just to recap, meditation is effortless focus on one thing for a period of time. It is actually quite natural to us. We are all meditating all the time on something or the other, perhaps on our ambitions for the future, perhaps on worries of the past, on things we like, on people we love, etc. However, what we meditate on is usually not useful to us. It doesn't help us transform. So, the object of meditation is very critical as we acquire the qualities of what we meditate upon. For example, I, for one, would certainly feel disturbed if I were resting my mind or deeply absorbed in a horror movie. Whereas, if I was sitting by the Himalayas and resting my mind on a serene lake, I'm likely to feel more composed. In the approach that I am exposed to called heartfulness, we meditate on the heart, supposing the presence of divine light there that is drawing our attention inwards. I have grown to realize the centrality of the heart in our physical, emotional, and spiritual lives. And there is beautiful, great wisdom to this idea of meditating on the heart. Why? At the physical level, it's the center of our circulatory system. So when we purify the heart, it actually touches every corner, every part of our system. At the emotional level, we all know intuitively that the heart is the center of emotion. For example, we tell a person his or her heart is in the right place. We say hearty congratulations. Where we say listen to your heart when you want to take a decision. We say draw inspiration from your heart. The word courage comes from the word core, which means heart. So we all intuitively know that the heart is the emotional center. Love is symbolized by the heart. In fact, modern medical research is also confirming that our emotional condition is best represented in the physiological parameters of the heart. So, from an emotional level, the heart plays a central role. At the spiritual level, too, the heart plays a vital role for us. Yogic science says that for a human being, the presence of the soul is most acutely felt in the heart. And therefore, in the heartfulness way, we have been taught to meditate on the heart with a very subtle idea or suggestion that there is a source of light there that is drawing our attention inward. I've heard of other points of meditation as well, and needless to say, one should choose what one works for him. Hopefully, the above gives a sense of why the heart is a central aspect of our lives. Second idea is to go about meditation in a relaxed way without fighting with thoughts. I learned something very interesting in heartfulness that most people I share with the practice with also find very comforting and relieving. That this activity of meditation is to be taken up without forcing the mind and in a very relaxed way with no attempt to concentrate. Daji often says that concentration is a natural outcome of meditation. And that's a different kind of concentration, a relaxed concentration, whereas meditation is a process. In fact, the thoughts that arise during meditation, I was taught, they are not coming, they are actually leaving us. They are all buried in the subconscious mind, waiting to leave our system. Just as when we sweep a floor, dust does come up. But that is why we are sweeping the floor. And what is important is how the floor is after the process of sweeping. So, the same way I was taught that what is important is how we feel after the meditation, and that thoughts are natural during meditation. Therefore, what we are supposed to do with these thoughts is not to fight them, but to simply ignore them and let them go, let them leave our system. Over time, these thoughts become less and less disturbing to our meditative practice. In fact, meditation is anyway automatically continuing at the subconscious level. So, this is about meditation as a practice. There is yet another practice in heartfulness that is often emphasized, which is the practice of cleaning. This practice helps us emotionally detox, emotionally detox. And meditation needs to be complemented with this practice. Without this, it is very hard to ignore the thoughts that assault us during meditation. These thoughts are buried in our subconscious system, and the subconscious system acquires these thoughts, acquires these impressions, if you will, through the life experiences that we have been through. For example, let us say that I was on 5 occasions assaulted by a stranger. I am very likely to form the view that strangers are dangerous and develop an automatic response or behavior pattern when I see strangers, which is maybe to be fearful and to defend myself. While this might be useful in some situations, in many situations or most situations, this is likely to be unhelpful because every stranger may not have this intention to be harmful to us. It's just that my life experiences on a few occasions, it turned out that way. What if I had a job that had where I had to constantly meet new people? I couldn't be running away from them all the time. So unless the impressions are cleared away from our subconscious system, they are the source of our thoughts, these impressions in the first place. So unless they are cleared away, it is very difficult for us to actually rest our mind on one object and progressively feel the effects, transformative effects of meditation. So in Heartfulness, we lay a lot of emphasis to this complementary practice of cleaning that one can do on one's own by the exercise of one's will, make sitting in a comfortable posture and making a suggestion that all impressions and complexities, impurities and complexities are leaving my system from the back in the form of smoke or vapor and applying our will behind this thought. I'm sure that those of you who are participating in this program are gaining exposure to this too in the morning sessions. We also have in Heartfulness the benefit of an app called the Hearts app, where we can meditate with a trainer. We can also do that in person with a trainer or online with a trainer, where a deeper process of cleaning is effected. Just as we brush our teeth on our own and go to a dentist for a deeper cleaning, this cleaning practice with a trainer helps effect a deeper process of cleaning. So that is one complementary practice in Heartfulness that is recommended and offered along with meditation. In Heartfulness, there is yet another practice of bedtime prayer meditation. This practice, when done for about 5 to 15 minutes, helps us connect with our inner source just before we go to sleep and allows us to retain that connection even during sleep. This makes sleep both physically restful, deeply restful, and spiritually productive as well. So when we say dhyan, I thought it is worth to expand beyond only meditation to an integrated set of practices. One, meditation itself that helps us connect to our source and helps us settle the activities of the mind. Two, the practice of cleaning that purifies the heart and enables the settling of the mind over time. And number three, the bedtime prayer meditation that installs this connection with our inner source deep into our subconscious system. So, as a package, this is what at least I have learned to think about Dhyan as beyond purely meditation. I would like to touch upon a couple of more aspects. While performing these practices, while performing these practices, it is very important, no doubt, to be regular in a practice. But Daji often says, and the guides of heartfulness often emphasize that the attitude behind the practice makes an enormous difference and amplifies the otherwise physical discipline that we may bring to the practice. For example, in meditation, the attitude that promotes our growth and development is one of interest and enthusiasm. That here is an opportunity for me to connect with myself. During cleaning, the conducive attitude is one of confidence. And during bedtime prayer meditation, the conducive attitude is one of humility. So, this is about our practice. I wish to call out the unique feature in heartfulness tradition that has made the experience both special and the effect transformative. And that is the element of yogic transmission or pranahuti that is infused into the practitioner at the time of meditation. This represents the direct support a practitioner gets on the path. So, our self effort is one thing, but this is the element of active direct support that one gets on the path. This feature of pranahuti or yogic transmission makes meditation both dynamic and transformative. The second guide of heartfulness, Sri Ramchandraji of Shahjahanpur, whom we affectionately addressed as Babuji, beautifully described and defined transmission as the utilization of divine energy for the transformation of man. Very precise definition of what transmission is. There is a great insight in this, which is that it requires divine energy to transform a human being. We are not talking about minor changes, we are talking about transformation, a fundamental reformation of a human being, a refinement of a human being. It takes a divine energy to transform a human being. And we all know that the one energy that can transform us, that can, without creating a reaction in us, is the energy of love. And that is what transmission is. It is the energy of love that nourishes the soul. Many practitioners of heartfulness have found the experience of transmission something very profound, leaving them totally relaxed, absorbed, composed, energized, and so on with just 25 to 30 minutes of practice. What experiences would otherwise take many, many years of self effort to accomplish can be substantially compressed with the support of yogic transmission. One last point in this section before we move on to the next part, which is what is beyond meditation. Many people ask the question, how do I know whether a particular practice of meditation is actually working for me or not? A very legitimate question indeed. The simple answer that we have learned in heartfulness is by studying the effect of the practice on us. An effective practice of meditation typically makes one feel lighter, one experience greater inner peace and calmness, and each one may begin seeing some sort of transformation in themselves. For example, I mentioned in my case, my fear went down quite a bit. Some people who might be prone to anger, they might be experiencing less anger. Some who are prone to many negative thoughts may experience less of that. People may be able to focus more. So, at the one level, the surest test of whether a practice is working for us or not is a progressive feeling of lightness of being, inner peace, and composure. In heartfulness, we suggest that practitioners attempt this way for about 90 days or so and study the effect of the practice on themselves. I can well see the wisdom of the Yoga for Unity program for 100 days. So, this brings us to the conclusion of the second part of this session, which is how to meditate, meditative practices. Shall now move on to the third part, which is beyond meditation. What next? It is worth noting that meditation, in and of itself, is not the end, but a means to the end. So the question is, what next? I shall call out three things in this section. First is the idea of retaining our condition after meditation, what Daji beautifully describes as the shift from actively meditating to being meditatively active. This allows us to perform our worldly duties in a meditative state and thereby not only discharge our duties effectively, but also avoid accumulating further impressions as we remain emotionally balanced. In yogic science, this is a rather advanced state of samadhi called Sahaj Samadhi, where there is total awareness and there is absorption. It is a state called Turiyatit. This can be achieved, meaning we can learn to be meditatively active in our lives. To achieve this, a few practices help. First, spending a few minutes after meditation truly studying our condition and digesting it. That allows us to easily recall the condition at any point of the day, just like we may be able to recall a joke and laugh about it at any point in a day. The second thing that helps us is to pause every now and then, especially when we are switching activities, when we go, say, from one telephone call to another, or when we switch from any one activity to another. It is helpful to pause for about 30 seconds and just connect to ourselves, to our heart, basically. The third method is a beautiful suggestion in Heartfulness given by the first guide of Heartfulness, Sri Ramchandraji of Fatehgarh, who was affectionately called Lalaji. He proposed a style of conversation that allows us to remain connected with our center, with our condition, and in fact radiate that condition through the medium of voice. He suggests that we speak while remaining connected with the heart, speak in an even tone without too many emotional highs and lows, and speak with love and with no inclination to hurt anyone. It is a great wisdom that I have personally found very, very effective for me, as a great part of our lives today seems to be around conversation and interacting with others. This particular method helps us retain our centeredness even while interacting with others. Others too find it very effective, and our communication reaches them and penetrates their hearts. So, this is one aspect that I wanted to touch upon on beyond meditation. What next? That meditation is only a means, and the idea is to shift ourselves from actively meditating for those 30 minutes to being meditatively active, which entails retaining our condition during the course of the day through all our worldly activities. The second thing that I want to touch upon is something that I have found very fascinating in this journey. As we experience the transformative effects of the meditative practices, the longing to refine ourselves seems to grow. At least that is how it has been for me. Therefore, in heartfulness, we are encouraged to adapt our lifestyle in order to retain and amplify the inner state and allow it to reflect outside in all our activities. The second guide of heartfulness, Babuji, offered 10 guidelines for heartful living, what he called the 10 maxims that serve as a beautiful complement to the meditative practices that we spoke about in the earlier section. This is an entire topic in itself and reveals why yoga, or the journey to personal mastery, is an integrated practice, and it is not just restricted to the time when we meditate. It is perhaps the reason why the heartfulness way is called Sahaj Marg, or the natural way. It is not just a set of practices that are dispensed, but a complete way of life, a way of living, where dhyan becomes a way of life itself. The last thing that I want to touch upon is what is closest to my heart and which has filled me with wonder, and the most wonderful aspect of this journey of 25 years in heartfulness. It is beyond the experiences, it goes beyond the international community of fellow practitioners and volunteers I've been blessed to interact with. It goes beyond the joy of even volunteering for this beautiful cause. And it is the opportunity and blessing to associate with the guides of heartfulness. In my case, Shri Parthasarathi Rajagopalachari, Chariji, the third guide of heartfulness, and Daji Shri Kamlesh Patel, the present guide of heartfulness. Their highly focused and purposeful lives, their love that is truly universal in its scope and yet so personalized in its manifestation, their selfless dedication and hard work towards this cause, their refined lifestyle and personality, and their total devotion to their Guru. These qualities make them inspiring role models whom one longs to become like. They are representations of nature and the ultimate state to aspire for. Many of us practitioners can attest to this. Over time, I have grown to appreciate that the real purpose of all these practices is to grow in admiration, which is nothing but affection plus respect, grow in admiration towards adoration for the Guru, which is a combination of love, reverence, and devotion. To aspire to become like them and become one with them in their essence. Daji often says that there is something even subtler than transmission, and that is called grace. He describes that grace melts the heart of the seeker, of the aspirant, and can achieve what 1,000 transmissions cannot. And how is grace activated? By the Guru's prayer, by the Guru's presence. So spiritual wisdom confirms that eventually mergence with the ultimate is a gift of the Guru. It happens by his grace. Hence, I close this session with a shloka that touches me deeply and which is where I think Dhyan can lead a true aspirant to. I should read this shloka and then we should have a short musical rendition of it. Dhyana Moolam Gurur Murti, Puja Moolam Gurur Padam, Mantra Moolam Gurur Vakyam, Moksha Moolam Gurur Kripa. The root of meditation is the form of the Guru. The root of worship is the feet of the Guru. The root of mantra is the word of the Guru. And the root of liberation is the grace of the Guru. Thank you, one and all, for this opportunity and best wishes for all of you.
ध्यानमूलं गुरुर्मूर्ति पूजामूलं गुरुर्पदम्